We've reached the finish line in our series, giving you the top 100 players in the NFL entering the 2024 season. Here's 25-1 today on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes, your daily podcast for NFL and college football scouting. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's better than this? It's guys being dudes here on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast. We're the Draft Dudes. I'm Joe Marino from Locked On Bills. He's Kyle Crabbs from Locked On Dolphins. And we are your NFL experts here with you daily to talk team building across the league on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast with the Draft Dudes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to issue a big thank you, shout out, and welcome to our everydayers. Those of you who never miss a single episode, we appreciate y'all being here very, very much. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply.
Joe, happy Friday.
Happy Friday to you.
That's all I have.
Well, I have something. Something.
Great.
So this is the end of the line for the top 100 players entering 2024. Super excited that we did this, excited to do this every year moving forward. The NFL releases theirs next week. How many players do we have are mutual? What would you set what are you thinking?
84.5.
You think we're going to have?
That's a pretty good number, right? That's every year when we do the top 100 for the huddle report for our draft stuff, you're like, man, give me an 85 or up. That's a very strong representative score. And I'd say 85. I'm shooting for 85 or more.
I don't
no idea how it's going to.
No idea. Yeah, we don't know what they're going to have. It certainly wasn't something we considered in making the list. We just stacked them how we stacked them.
Well, and like we said yesterday, we had 3 times as many interior offensive linemen as they did last year on that list.
Yeah, and I hate their methodology. Their methodology absolutely blows, man. What is it like?
As many players as they can for their top 20.
Yeah, it's like here's the list of 20.
Yeah.
What?
I get it. You don't want to take up too much time.
Right? I get that, but
you don't like it to be too time consuming of an exercise, because then you're not going to get the interaction that you want with the poll.
I get that. But if I'm only listing 20 players, there's no way 100 players should be represented. You know what I'm saying? If everyone's ballot's only 20?
Yes. Depends on how many people, yes. I think it would be a much more accurate if it was a 50.
It'd be a lot better. It'd be a lot better. Or, I don't know. There's
how they do it.
It's interesting, but I think their methodology stinks, and so therefore I don't
Not a fan.
Not a fan.
Well, let's see if we can get people to be fans of how we bring this thing home with our final 25 players of the Dudes 2024 NFL Top 100. We're going to reveal 25 through 21 now, and then segment 2 is 20 to 11, and then 10 to 1 to bring us home this week. Number 25, Patrick Surtain II, cornerback from the Denver Broncos. Number 24, Tristan Wirfs, offensive tackle, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Wide receiver CeeDee Lamb, Dallas Cowboys at 23. Dexter Lawrence, defensive tackle, New York Giants at 22. And Kyle Hamilton, safety, Baltimore Ravens at number 21.
What I like about this batch of players, and certainly Dexter Lawrence doesn't qualify, but we are going to be staring at some big contract extensions for 4 of these 5, right? Surtain, Wirfs, Lamb, Hamilton. So can we do something just a little bit weird here?
Okay.
Let's look at
what's the order of what they get in money?
Well, okay, so let's just do it. Surtain is the corner.
Yeah.
Top APY corner right now in the NFL is Jair Alexander at 21. Yep. How much higher than 21 does he get?
Look at 22.
I think it might be a bigger reset than that, but at least 22.
It's the easy bar to set, right? Because that clears Winfield Jr.'s money for top defensive back as well.
Okay, so we get Tristan Wirfs, and of course, Penei Sewell just got the big reset at $28 million, topping Laramie Tunsil at $25 million.
Who's just below 28?
It's Andrew. Tunsil's 25. Andrew Thomas is 23.5. Trent Williams is 23. Mailata is 22. Dawkins at 20.
So you got a $3 million gap.
Big.
And Wirfs has a justification to land above Sewell too.
He'll be the next good young tackle, right? Like elite player.
Right. But it doesn't necessarily work like at quarterback where it's guaranteed to level
I know.
up. But he also plays left tackle now. I'd say he probably gets over 28. I'd say he's probably market reset.
But not massive. Not massive.
Correct. By a very incremental amount.
This one's the most fascinating to me. It's CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb, of course, Jefferson gets 35, A.J. Brown 32, Amon-Ra 30 and a penny, so that way he was higher than Tyreek at 30. So CeeDee Lamb, is he getting north of 35?
No. He'll get above 32, though.
Is it with Dallas? They got to keep him, right?
You have to. Especially if you end up letting that situation play out. Like, you're going to have all of those assets. And I know the way that they structured the contract, like there's implications for 2025, regardless of whether he's on the roster or not. But you can make it work with a new contract in the first couple years of it where those hits aren't big. You have to keep CeeDee Lamb. You don't have to, but for where Dallas is at as an organization, do they keep all three between Dak, CD, and Micah Parsons?
Mm-mm. No, I don't think they do.
So who's on the chopping block?
I don't know. I just don't think they do. I don't think they do.
And that gets into a very interesting situation because if it's Dak, they just let Dak walk. They say, okay, you pay the two guys and draft a quarterback or sign somebody else.
Right.
But if it's not, and you're Dallas, you do get into the what is the return on a player we don't plan on keeping conversation. You should just pay CeeDee Lamb, though.
Dexter Lawrence is a value contract already. He's at 22.5. I mean, that's such good value for them. That's one of the best value contracts in the league for an elite player. Okay, Kyle Hamilton's the last one here.
He's got 2 years, right?
Yeah, he's got a little time here. Right now, of course, Antoine Winfield, top of safety market at 21.25 per. Derwin at 19, Mika Fitzpatrick 18. McKinney got 16.75. Jesse Bates 16.
This year's to be determined. Because I think the loss of Mike McDonald and the implementation of a player like that, it requires a lot of consistency with the vision and the week to week. And I know they kind of kept the same system, but I think this will be a big year for a continued optimization of Kyle Hamilton to prove that he can play at the elite level he played at last year, independently of being dependent on the calls to get him in the right spots. And I think he's a transcendent player. I had him 11th on my personal ballot, right? Like, I think he's the best safety in the league. But there is just a question there. And we got into that a little bit a couple days ago when we talked about Javon Holland, right? And like your individual impact on being in position to make plays can be dependent upon how you're asked to play. That doesn't make you any less talented.
Right. But there was that one rep, remember, in training camp where
he got ran by.
Yeah, there was that one play.
He didn't run as fast as we wanted to at the combine, right?
Yeah.
Him and Amon-Ra St. Brown poster children of why you should just forget those dogs, man. If they run too slow, just forget them. Take them off your board.
Yeah. All right, so we got 20 more players to get to here today. The top 20 players in the NFL. So be sure to stick with us. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber and not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find as many quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals that you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours, and 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. So hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms apply.
All right. Diving right back in. Number 20 is quarterback Matthew Stafford, LA Rams. Number 19, Antoine Winfield Jr., safety, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Number 18, Jamar Chase, wide receiver, Cincinnati Bengals. Number 17, Quinnen Williams, defensive tackle, New York Jets. Number 16, cornerback Sauce Gardner, New York Jets. Number 15, TJ Watt, edge rusher, Pittsburgh Steelers. Number 14, Nick Bosa, defensive end, San Francisco 49ers. Number 13, linebacker Fred Warner, San Francisco 49ers. 12 is tight end Travis Kelce, Kansas City Chiefs. And 11 is Micah Parsons, Dallas Cowboys.
Stud. We're getting into the best players in the entire NFL here. And I think what's interesting, and I don't want to get ahead of ourselves here, but we are at the cream of the crop, and it's interesting to see how many players or how many teams just have like multiple players
in this block.
Right, dude. Like you got two Jets, both defensive players. You got two 49ers, and come on, you know that there's two more coming, right?
And George Kittle was 26.
Right.
So
it's just
Dallas with CD and Micah, who we just referenced both of those names. Kansas City has Kelce and a few names awaiting in segment 3. It's not a coincidence, right, that these teams show up here. Baltimore had 3 players in our top 30 or 31. Cincinnati's got 2 in the top 30. The Rams would have with Stafford and Donald. Aaron retired.
Right. Right.
Went out on top. So I don't think it's a coincidence that the teams that are perpetually showing up late in the year are the teams that have a lot of representation here. And when we get through the end of the list, Joe, I do want to sort by team and kind of talk about who's most well represented on this list.
Yeah. That'll be a fun thing to do.
Let me ask you this, because I don't think there's anybody in 1 through out of the players from 11 to 20. We talked about Aaron Donald retiring. Is Matthew Stafford the next most likely player of the names that we're looking at to retire?
Yeah. I mean, Travis Kelce just signed
right?
Well, he just signed the new deal, right?
Yeah, that can change in a heartbeat.
For sure.
Jason Kelce would have been probably in the stratosphere, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think
that's what's exciting is you look at a lot of the names that we've revealed thus far in the 25 through 11. It's a lot of young guys in their prime still.
Guys on rookie deals.
Mm-hmm.
Even in this block, you've got Chase, Sauce Gardner, Micah Parsons, 3 guys that are still on the rookie deals to already be at this status of a player. I mean,
and Winfield just left his.
Yeah. Just left his. Who's the guy from this list? I mean, you just mentioned who's going to potentially retire. When we do this next year, who's going to be in the top 10 that's not top 10?
Out of this?
Yeah. I had two players that I voted for in the top 10 that came in here.
Yeah. Nick Bosa being one. I just didn't think Nick Bosa had his best season last year. His sack production was down. His quarterback hits were down, and that's not to say he was an elite player, right? Like, still very obviously one of the best pass rushers in the game. But relative to performances of other players, I just had him a little bit lower on the pecking order, where I think you looked at the entire body of work, would probably be fair to say, to come in and peg him where you did. He's probably the one that's best primed to bounce back and kind of re-solidify that perception of himself. I think TJ Watt's got a good chance of getting back in as well. Those are the two who have the body of work.
A couple of guys that have been defensive players of the year, right? I mean,
right.
Bosa 22, and did Watt get it in 20 and 2020?
No, he only got it in 2021.
Okay.
He got robbed in 2022 for, what was it? Aaron Donald.
That was
a definitively less impressive season.
Yeah.
It was like Donald's worst year in 3 years, and he still got it. And it was Watt and Xavier Howard had 10 interceptions that year.
I've heard you say that before.
Yeah. I think it's a little ridiculous Stephon Gilmore got it with a year that wasn't as good as Xavier Howard's was that year, but that's fine.
That was the weirdest DPOY voting I've ever seen.
Kind of like this year's MVP award, right? Like,
I can't.
I'm kidding.
I can't with that.
I can't deal with the discourse on it online.
I can't. The least statistically impressive NFL MVP season we've ever had. Like, congratulations for having a great defense and not turning over the ball. What? 2-time MVP? Okay.
Okay, I'll give you one. Out of this group of guys, what player is the most likely to change teams?
I'd be surprised.
Stafford, Winfield Jr., Chase, Quinnen Williams, Sauce Gardner, TJ Watt, Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, Travis Kelce, Micah Parsons.
I'd be surprised if any of them did, but I feel like the answer is probably Chase, just because the Bengals do business weird. But I think they're going to keep him. I'm not predicting that, but if you had to make me guess which one would change teams, that'd be the guy.
You think there's any chance Stafford moves on from the Rams
and plays for another team?
Yeah.
Don't you feel like this is it for him?
Well, I don't know. I mean, he's kind of voiced some displeasure about his contract. Were the Rams going to redo the contract with him in his age 36 or later season?
So Stafford right now is...
He's owed $31 million in salary this year. It's the last guaranteed money left on his contract.
I think he's just got to be honest about how much longer he wants to play, right? I think that's what's challenging about that. But he's at $40 million APY. We both think he's a top 5 quarterback in the league.
Right. And the next 2 years, starting in 2025, he's got 2 years left on his deal. He has $27 and $26 million plus roster bonuses.
I'd be offended that Kirk Cousins is making $5 million more a season than me if I'm Matthew Stafford.
And again, that's not even accounting for what the actual 3 years of what he's owed is.
Right.
It's 41, 81, 94. It's 3 years, 94 is what's left on his deal.
Got a
and
case.
Only $31 million guaranteed.
Got a case. All right, I want to leave plenty of room in the last segment, obviously, to disclose our final 10, but to do what you said, talk about the distribution of players per team. Folks, be sure to stick with us. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Comparison is the thief of joy, and it's easy to envy other people's lives. It might look like they have it all together on their Instagram, but in reality, they probably don't. Therapy can help you focus on what you want instead of what others have, so you can start living your best life. Therapy is helpful for learning positive coping skills and how to set boundaries. It empowers you to be the best version of yourself. It's not just for people who have experienced major trauma. Stop comparing and start focusing with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon.
I'll dive right in. Number 10.
That was my drum roll. I don't know if anybody could tell that I did that, but
how's that?
Wow, you're shaking a little bit there. It was sigh.
Number 10, Maxx Crosby, defensive end, LA Raiders,
Stud.
Las Vegas Raiders. Number 9, offensive tackle Trent Williams, San Francisco 49ers.
Super good.
Number 8, offensive tackle Penei Sewell, Detroit Lions.
Exceptional.
Number 7, keep thinking of more adjectives as we go. Running back Christian McCaffrey, San Francisco 49ers.
Elite.
Number 6, wide receiver Tyreek Hill, Miami Dolphins.
Scary.
Number 5, defensive tackle Chris Jones, Kansas City Chiefs.
Dominant.
Number 4, quarterback Josh Allen, Buffalo Bills.
I love you, Josh Allen.
Number 3, defensive end Myles Garrett, Cleveland Browns.
Freak.
Number 2, wide receiver Justin Jefferson, Minnesota Vikings.
Monster.
And number 1, quarterback Patrick Mahomes, Kansas City Chiefs. He's Pat. That's it. That's the top 10.
Dude, the best of the best. Just blue chippers, guys that you don't want to play against, guys that change football games. It's hard to. These are the 10 players you kind of expect it to be. Like maybe you could say, okay, if you bump out Parsons or bump out Crosby and put Parsons or something like that. But like, this is a special group of players that it's interesting to see the distribution of youth. Like we have Penei Sewell and Trent Williams, like literally the youngest elite tackle and the oldest elite tackle. You see Tyreek Hill, he's 30? Is he 30? And Justin Jefferson, like, just got done getting his first extension. So, like, it's kind of cool to see the contrasting, like, aging still top 10 player in the league versus, the young top 10 player in the league at the same position.
Were you surprised that Trent Williams came in behind Penei Sewell? I was a little surprised.
Well, it's my fault.
It is your fault, but I mean, you very clearly voted Penei Sewell in front of Trent Williams, and I'm not asking you to get into those two, but just, is it Penei being where he's at, knowing that he's only going to presumably get better from here for you?
Yeah, I think I'm leaning into the ceiling of Sewell and the player I thought he was at Oregon, the player he's been at Detroit. And I don't know, I felt like this was the one season of Trent Williams. Like, I think I've said repeatedly that I think Trent Williams is a top 3 player in the NFL. I thought this past season was the one where I was like, man, I seen him take more L's than I typically do. And so that influenced how I stacked them. But I mean, I had Trent Williams 14th, so still very high, but you had him 3. Yep. So you could see the contrast there.
If you could pick one player out of the 10 to be on your team, that's not on your team.
You're a real jerk.
Who would you pick?
Who would I pick if I can have one of these players
to add to your favorite team for the 2024 season?
Oh, that's such a good question. And you have to answer it too.
Yeah, that's fine.
Well, you're going to pick Pat, right? Are we eliminating the quarterbacks?
Yeah, just take the quarterbacks out because it's Josh and Pat, and one of them's on one of our teams already.
Oh, dude, you know who I'm picking. You know exactly who I'm picking.
It's Myles Garrett.
Yes, it's Myles Garrett. We literally just in the pre-show had a conversation about how I want a number 1 pass rusher more than I do a number 1 receiver. So as much as I would like die to have Tyreek Hill or Justin Jefferson, I got to have Myles Garrett, man. Okay, same question.
I'd probably put Trent back with Mike.
Over Penei with the right tackle thing and blindside.
Man,
does that factor in?
It does, but how many games am I going to really get a Teron Armstead? You know what I mean? Like
10, 12?
It'd probably be one of the tackles.
Well, you don't need any receivers, so that takes away Justin Jefferson.
I guess you could kick Austin Jackson inside to guard. Take Penei, put him at right tackle. And then Penei can play left tackle, and then you can move Austin back out when Teron Armstead goes down.
Do you think for a second about Chris Jones? I mean, you should think for a second about all these players, right?
About all of them.
Right.
Probably not Justin Jefferson. I feel like that'd be a little redundant.
Right. It's like, okay. We're going to score. Well, I mean, you're going to score 50 points a game, right? I mean,
theoretically, yeah.
It never quite goes
for all the narrative around any Tom, Dick, or Harry could play quarterback in Miami's offense and put up a bunch of numbers. If you gave me Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, and Jalen Waddle, you probably do pretty good for yourself.
There's
right?
nothing you can do. I might have a chance to throw for 3,000 yards,
Yeah.
Even I can't even grip a football.
You want to filter this thing by team?
Yeah, but are we going to be in trouble? Oh, you see, Kyle Crabbs, you're smart. You got rid of those guys at the end. You're ready for this.
I got
You're
it.
ready.
All right. So the first team that pops, Baltimore, still has a lot of elite representation. 7 players on this list.
Yeah, I think Baltimore's a really. I'm glad we're talking Baltimore because you and I think started this project thinking a lot about the transition that Baltimore has had, and then just like interior offensive line stuff with the defense, and then when we got to the end of the line, they scored incredibly well. I was like, I'm a little surprised. Well, when you have 7 top 100 players,
right,
and a top tier coaching
really
staff,
well.
Yeah.
You surprise? What's another team that surprises you as I sit here and I tally all of these for what each individual team has?
I'll spin it like this. I think when you consider upper echelon teams in the NFL, you'd expect them to be well populated here. The Bills have 3 players, and I'm not sure you can make a great argument for them to have anyone else. Like maybe Ed Oliver's knocking on the door, but we have Milano, Dawkins, and Josh Allen, and that's all I voted for. And I think maybe if we would extend this to 150, there could be a bunch more names, but that's not the point.
Right.
I think as the Bills as a contending team, only having 3 players, it says something to me.
How about Detroit also having 6? It's a very healthy number. Hawkinson, Goff, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Aiden Hutchinson, Frank Ragnow, and Penei Sewell. Nice blend. Guys that they acquired via trade, right? You consider Hawkinson and Goff. Guys that they drafted. And Sewell and Hutchinson and Amon-Ra is kind of the faces of the new pillar of them, and a holdover in Frank Ragnow. I think that's a really fun blend of names for a team that's very well populated as far as just the raw number of players that they have represented here.
Yeah. Tampa Bay's got 4. Levante David, Mike Evans, Tristan Wirfs, Antoine Winfield. I know that they've got a lot of blanks to fill in on defense, and we got to figure out this interior offensive line. But I think that's a nice mix of blue chip talent to go for the defending NFC South champions.
How about this team scored better than I think we probably thought that they would in this entire exercise, and it was the Chargers. They scored out as kind of a middle of the pack team for us. They got Herbert, and that's it.
Well, they should have had Slater, but you didn't see that one like I did.
He was an honorable mention. But my point, my overall point being, I think everybody's really excited to see what Harbaugh with Herbert with the Chargers looks like. That's one that's probably going to take a little bit of time. And there's going to be a deliberate nature that I think has to happen there. And you consider the narrative that existed around the Chargers for the past few seasons was, oh, they got a really talented team. They got a lot of top-end players. Well, they got rid of half of them. Keenan Allen made the list. Mike Williams didn't make the list. Austin Eckler didn't make the list. Those are the kinds of guys they flushed out of the system. They still got Derwin James and Joey Bosa. They didn't make the list. So I think that's a team that the wall came very quickly for the Chargers. And I think you look at where they're at now and you have an honest conversation. Yeah, the Giants in 2022 went 9-7 and they played a certain style of play to get you there. And they really surprised everybody. And Justin Herbert's miles better than Daniel Jones. And Harbaugh's a better coach, we presume, than Brian Daboll. But I would just be really surprised. There's people that think this is an odds-on playoff team.
Yeah.
I just don't see that.
Yeah, I don't either. The Jets, how about the Jets? They've got, is that 6 players? Mosley, Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson, Hassan Reddick, Quinnen Williams, Sauce Gardner. That doesn't include Aaron Rodgers. And on my initial run through, I'm not going to lie, I had Quincy Williams in the top 100, and I bounced him out because I wanted to put someone else in. So and you got some other good young players that are knocking on the door, like Jermaine Johnson and Joe Tippmann. All right, Jets, what you got, baby? And you got a lot of hype. We'll see if you can do it.
Kansas City had 7. Detroit had 6. Baltimore had 7. The Jets had 6, like you mentioned. San Francisco has 7. Miami has 6. Green Bay has 5. Dallas has 5. That's pretty much it for like the 5+.
Is anybody shut out? Arizona.
Arizona.
Is that
Which
it?
makes sense because they have such a...
Indianapolis is shut out too.
Young nuclear. Indy had 3 in the honorable mentions. They had Nelson, Jonathan Taylor, and DeForest Buckner.
Washington's got 1. Carolina's on the board. Okay.
So I'm still typing in the final 3, and then I'll do a final head count. If you want to give me one more observation, that should bring us home.
One more observation to bring us home. Atlanta kind of pops to me. Cousins, Bijan, Jesse Bates, Chris Lindstrom. And I feel like they got some young players that are knocking on the door there as well. I mean, there's probably previous years where AJ Terrell would be on there, and he's still a good young player. Drake London, I think, is going to be a monster for that team this year. Hopefully they can get a young pass rusher to step up.
I feel like we're missing a few other teams that were shut out.
Well, I mean, I'm spitballing here just based on looking at them in alphabetical order.
Yeah, because I have 30 teams written down. Seattle.
Wow, are they shut out?
Mm-hmm. I mean, think about it. Their best players are DK, who was on our chopping block.
Yeah,
but got eliminated. Lockett.
Like Devin Witherspoon's knocking on the door.
Yeah, I think probably a year premature for him, right? And then New England was shut out.
Okay.
So those are the 4 teams shut out: was Seattle, Arizona, New England, and Indianapolis.
Seattle, Arizona, New England, Indianapolis. And and isn't it funny? Like my sleeper teams this year are Indy and Seattle. That's okay.
Probably justifiably classified as sleepers relative to if you're defining top end talent as whether they're contenders or not. But that is going to do it for us. Draft Dudes 2024 NFL Top 100 is in the books. I'm Kyle Crabbs. He's Joe Marino. We appreciate you guys for checking out the show. You can make it a great weekend. You can find us on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. We are out of here, and we will be back again on Monday as we open up the mass reporting to training camp across the NFL.